Hello and welcome to Empire of Wargames. My name is Uplash, and in today's video we are going to be talking about the current state of Warhammer 40K. This is going to be part of a small video series where I'm going to be talking about Age of Sigmar, Warcry, Kill Team and so on. I'm going to make a separate video for all of them and talk about the current state of these games. If you enjoy the content, consider leaving a thumbs up and subscribing, as well as checking the links down in the description below if you want to be a member and get access to these kinds of videos a little bit earlier. I'm also going to upload member exclusive content in the future, and if you want to join us over on Discord for additional discussions and information, definitely consider that as well. With that, let's get into the video. So talking about the current state of Warhammer 40K is certainly an interesting thing, because it seems on surface level that everyone is more or less happy with the current edition and things are going great. But if you read the underlying tones, there is more to be communicated, especially by the part of the community that is usually much less vocal than the other. So let's start by talking about the rules and whether 10th edition is going to be remembered as a good edition or not. Starting with the competitive community. The competitive community is obviously the loudest. I think that the competitive community is giving the most feedback. It's logical. They have their own email address at GW where they can send in rules questions. They can send in kind of basically information whenever they notice a mistake and so on. And they make use of that very, very heavily, especially whenever there is a glaring problem. The casual community doesn't even interact with the social channels that GW has set up, and much less are they interested in every single new release that GW releases or announces every single week. And thus you see much less of them. The community that you see usually criticizing 10th edition is the narrative-minded community. These people love 40K, they love the lore, they read the books, and they really enjoy themselves and, design their own little narrative scenarios, and they are making the most out of what Crusade is giving them. But 10th edition is going to be remembered as an edition that is very well balanced, especially, after the first 3 to 6 months. Obviously, the Eldarion launch were not very fun, but I think once they sorted that out, especially at the time of recording, we are looking at an edition that is just very balanced. Not every faction is at 50% or anything, but I think if you go to a tournament with any kind of faction and you're not playing the weakest units in a codex, you're going to have a great time. Internal balance, definitely something that GW needs to take a way better look at, because it seems they are very much struggling with internal codex balance, but as far as faction balance goes, they're doing pretty well. But there was a cost. GW decided that no matter how you paint your army, you're going to be able to play your army in whatever detachment and with whatever rules you want. And it is something that is generally speaking positive. It was very annoying that I could only if I had my army painted as Blood Angels, I could only play them as Blood Angels, especially on an official GW tournament, and it was that. And if I didn't play them as Blood Angels, if you just walk up to a store and want to play a pickup game with someone, people just expect that you are playing Blood Angels because you put them on the table. And that is something that you need to communicate. It's annoying and so on. And now people just ask, hey, what detachment are you running? Okay, that's how it goes. We are starting the game now. And that's something that I consider to be very positive, but it's a massive lack of flavor, especially for Space Marine chapters, for example, that are not non-codex compliant. So if you're not a Black Templars player, not a Blood Angels player, not a Space Wolves or Dark Angels player, or if you're very lucky, an Ultramarines player, because these guys, while still getting shafted from being a just basic codex compliant Space Marine chapter, they at least have a ton of characters at their disposal. But if you play Imperial Fists, Raven Guard, and one of these chapters, it, for one, rules-wise, doesn't make any sense. Not that it's very important for narrative, but still. And you only have a single character that you can make use of. And while there are rules via detachments that represent your army a little bit, the flavor is just entirely lacking. And there is nothing there to, sink your teeth into as far as a narrative player goes. Casual players, while enjoying that the game is balanced and not being frustrated while playing against their friend, especially if they're new, just notice that, there's a lot of bite missing. After the initial few games, they noticed that, some of the units didn't quite work or weren't quite as interesting as they thought they would be, or detachments didn't quite work as they thought they would. And it is something I noticed because I introduce a ton of new players to the game every single year. That's something I brag about a lot, but, getting people into the hobby is something that gets me excited. It's fun. Getting new people into the game is always a cool thing, because that means everyone has more players to play against, more people to share the hobby with, and so on. But generally speaking, new players quickly lose the magic of Warhammer in their eyes, and it turns into math hammer and numbers, and they don't even see the units on the table anymore. But they kind of read on Reddit and over on the internet, and the most vocal community, as I said, is the competitive community. And it all turns into numbers and spreadsheets, and that is something that I heavily dislike, and that is something that I hope GW is going to address at some point in 11th edition. And it is definitely something that needs happening, because while Crusade and so on are very helpful rule sets, and while Combat Patrol is a great starting point, all of these need major overhauls, and especially Crusade as a game mode, while being really cool and adding a lot of flavorful stuff, needs to be way bigger. It needs to be a way bigger chunk of the entire game. It needs to be supported much, much more. And if GW would set up their own events and, give it a bigger chunk of a codex and more rules and maybe dedicated rules writers and designers, that would be a great breakthrough for the thing, because they don't need to compromise competitive integrity and balancing for narrative-minded people. You could separate that a little bit. And Crusade, as well as, just regular match play games, could do that perfectly fine without, tinkering too much with all the different rules and units. But that is definitely a discussion I would much prefer to have in a podcast setting where I have someone to bounce off of, which is currently not the case. Finding someone for a 40K podcast is very, very difficult, and finding people who kind of play the game as much as I do and would be interesting to talk to me over a podcast is a very limited amount of people. So yeah, that's that for now. So if you have anything to share as far as my thoughts on this one went, definitely drop it down in the comments below. I would be very interested to hear if you're a narrative player, a little bit more of a competitive-minded player, match play player. Let me know what you think about the current edition, and what do you think about the other side of the kind of table, or the other side of the river, where you look over and you look as a competitive player towards the narrative side, and the vice versa. I would be just very interested to hear what your impressions are of, narrative Warhammer 40K as a competitive player, and so on. That would be a very interesting discussion to have. Next up, I wanted to talk about Warhammer 40K's current state as far as value boxes go, because there's a lot to criticize here. First up, we are going to talk about the positives. The positives being that the army boxes that have released over the past few years, especially during 10th edition, have been, generally speaking, very good. GW is printing enough of them. The value in these boxes, especially considering that you are getting a codex and data cards, are very good. And the Blood Angels army box that have sold out despite apparently receiving a second print run has been insane. This box had so much stuff in it, so many upgrades, Bruce, the codex, the cards, a big unit with the Dreadnought, a lot of essential units in their infantry, 2 new characters. It was just an amazing box all around. And it's no wonder that these boxes sold out despite receiving a lot more new stock over the past few weeks and post-release. It's crazy. Probably a better box than any of the Battle Forces this year, I'm going to be completely honest. So yeah, army boxes, insane. As far as other value boxes go though, we are in a little bit of a drought, and it's a little bit weird. Looking at the Battle Forces, I've obviously made a full-on playlist on all of these boxes. If you're interested in checking these videos out, there's going to be a playlist link down in the pinned comment below. But generally speaking, the consensus on the Warhammer 40K Battle Forces is that they are generally worse as far as the average quality goes compared to the Age of Sigmar ones, simply because a lot of these boxes have made just weird concessions. So looking at the Tesoritas box, for example, which is by far the worst one, it's just a boring box, and the best one being the Dark Angels, but that one is obviously a niche within a niche, and if you've already started, say, a Space Marine chapter or something, this box is going to be a little bit weird to pick up. It's probably more for new players who specifically want to play Dark Angels. And let's not kid ourselves, going to sell out immediately, but that's also the best box we've gotten this year. The Knights box was gimped for no reason. They just decided to not include a little bit more plastic for, yeah, absolutely no reason. And that's that. I'm kind of curious whether a few cents per box is really going to drive up the profit margins that much, considering that they are not going to print that many Battle Forces to begin with. And the rest of the Battle Forces are just okay. So Battle Forces this year, kind of not that exciting. Overall, we are getting 1 Battle Force less than we usually do. I hope that means that we are getting more boxes printed, but that remains to be seen. Other thing that I wanted to talk about is 2-player battle boxes. In 9th edition and 8th edition, we got a ton of them. basically every quarter we got at least one of these 2-player battle boxes, Piety and Pain, and so on. And these were somewhat popular boxes depending on, if you wanted one of these factions or maybe even start both of them, or maybe the box motivated you to start a second army with the other half. None of these boxes really arrived during 10th edition, despite a lot of people speculating on that, especially during the start of 10th edition. A lot of people were saying that we are probably going to get kind of a Imperial Guard and Mechanicus 2-player battle box or something like that, but that never happened. And yeah, it seems that they are done away with, which is interesting because that's the easiest way for GW to kind of casually motivate someone to start another army. And I'm very curious to see what the sales data there is and why GW decided against it. But, 2-player battle boxes, for better or for worse, had their own benefits and drawbacks. A lot of people usually just wanted a single half. Then, if they were lucky, they had a friend to share them with. But still, I would be very curious to hear your opinion on 2-player battle boxes. Did you buy them back in the day? And if you're new to the kind of hobby, what do you think about the ones that you can see on the screen right now? Would you pick any of these up? And so on. Very curious to hear what you think. And last but not least, we have to talk about combat patrols. Combat patrols, ever since the start of 10th edition, as you've noticed, do not contain as much value. The value went down. The average of a combat patrol these days is probably more like 28%, where it previously was 33%. And at the same time, we are getting fewer boxes as far as high-value combat patrols go. Usually these high-value combat patrols are something like the new Blood Angels combat patrol, but not because it's so good, but because it contains upgrade sprues and all that kind of stuff, where yes, it's additional value, but it's just not as exciting as another unit or character or another model. Furthermore, all the combat patrols that have released during 10th edition strongly indicate to me that GW wants to remove vehicles from them entirely, outside of a few smaller ones, like for example walkers, like smaller walkers, not dreadnoughts, and some basic transports, as you can see with the Tau combat patrol. I think that is because they want to design a game mode that is more closely related to Spearhead for 11th edition Warhammer 40K. I hope they are going to retain the same board size as we have it currently, not the super small board size of Spearhead, because that's my biggest criticism with Spearhead. And yeah, I just hope that Combat Patrol gets to evolve, gets to be better, because, if Spearhead is anything to go by, there is a lot of value to be had in you buy a box, you assemble it, you play with your friends. So yeah, the TLDR for Combat Patrols in 10th edition is the value went down. The models that you're getting are just less exciting, no big centerpieces anymore, nothing really that exciting that grabs you. A lot of these newer Combat Patrols are also weirdly thematic, looking at the Orc Combat Patrol and so on. There could be a benefit for some, the drawback for others. It depends entirely on you and what you want to kind of buy and start your army with. But generally speaking, Combat Patrols are still, and it's probably never going to change, the best way to start an army entirely from scratch, unless you have a super specific vision on what kind of list you want to run. Because Combat Patrols give you still savings of approximately 28 to 30%. They are going to give you a good foundation of a starting force. You're getting a character, and you can build on top of that if you want to, unless you're just, as I said, a super competitive player that has a very specific vision. So yeah, Combat Patrols, are they bad or anything? Absolutely not. But the quality definitely went down during 10th edition, and that is worth talking about. And last but not least, and that is something that is more closely related to the time I'm uploading this video to, is that during the end of 2024, we are more or less in a content drought. Over the last few months, we've only received a Blood Angels army box and their respective codex, and that's that. Obviously, their Combat Patrol as well. And now we are getting a few battle forces, and that is that. That is exceptionally weird, especially as far as Warhammer 40K goes, because, that's their moneymaker. And seeing that Warhammer 40K goes for multiple months without any big releases is certainly interesting. Now, the most logical explanation for this is obviously that GW released Age of Sigmar 4th edition this year. And now towards the end of the year, where we are currently, they have released a new edition for Kill Team and a new edition for Warhammer Underworlds. And that is where their current focus lies. That is definitely something we are going to talk about in the upcoming videos. We're obviously going to make this kind of video also for Age of Sigmar, Kill Team, and Warcry / Underworlds. I'm going to put those two in a single video, and we are going to talk about things there. But definitely, if you have any kind of subtopics or topics that you want me to talk about in the Age of Sigmar or Warcry or Kill Team videos, let me know in the comments below as well. But generally speaking, yeah, there's a big content drought currently in Warhammer 40K. We're not getting a lot of new releases, And honestly, the next codex is probably not going to arrive in January, but rather in February or March. And it is going to take a little while because, you know, you remember this one, this roadmap? Yeah, it's not very helpful and it sucks. And that's basically all we have. It's literally all you have and all we can talk about. And it sucks. You know, I wish I could speculate a little bit more, talk a little bit more about, you know, future combat patrols and so on. And I'm probably going to make a video on that, especially considering, you know, Eldari and something Craft Worlds are going to get new combat patrols. And I think it's fun to speculate a little bit what they're going to put in there. But other than that, it's really not much to talk about for 40K currently. And that's why I'm uploading a little bit, you know, just less videos over the past few days because the battle forces really kept my channel alive. And now it's a little bit empty and I'm waiting for something interesting to happen. That's basically that. So with that, I hope to see you in the next video. I hope if you have anything to share, if you have any thoughts on anything I've said in this video, that, you know, you share your comments, let me know what you think. As I said, if you want to have access to these kinds of videos a little bit earlier, definitely consider becoming a member. It goes a long way in helping me to keep this channel alive because, you know, a little bit more money definitely helps as always. And yeah, with that, join us over on Discord if you want to talk to us. And with that, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much for listening. Take care.